I was on LinkedIn and I would search up people that I admired or wanted to be like. And a lot of those people on LinkedIn had MBAs. If I want to get to this position this person's at, maybe I need to go down the MBA route.
If business schools wanted to fill their classes with, insert, engineer from India, McKinsey, Bain, BCG consultant.
Those people are out
That's
there.
easy.
That scared the living daylights out of me. When you look at the posts and quants videos and everyone's working at FANG or investment banking. But then when I kind of told Jessica about my life and my story, and she was like, I don't see why you're so nervous. Like, you have a perfect shot.
What are your values? What's your perspective on life? What experiences have shaped how you navigate through the world? Because when you're running a company, they want to know that you understand how to look out for your employees. They want to understand that you know how to have a conversation with someone outside your comfort zone.
What does it take to get into MIT Sloan? Well, if you ask today's podcast guest, he may say a unique background and Jessica Shklar on your side. Aman Singh dreamed of moving from his native Ireland to attend MIT, but even with his strong engineering background, he thought it was only a dream. But as we sit here today, he has just begun his second year. Let's find out how this journey happened.
So Aman and I actually got to meet last year when he had just started at MIT and I was in Boston for my HBS reunion. So we had coffee. It's so nice to see you again.
Thanks.
And it was just great hearing all about his first couple of months at school, and then obviously staying in touch by email has been exciting. So I'm glad we're having this conversation to learn more.
Yeah, really, thank you very much for being here. As a fellow MIT Sloan, in my case, alumni, I'm just really excited to hear about all that's happening, all the good things that are happening on campus, and just how your experience has been.
So why don't we start out, just tell us, I know Harold's introduced you a little bit, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, fantastic. So before coming to Sloan, I was in London. So I was in London for about 6 years, where I kind of started my career. Over there, I did my master's at King's in data science, started off as a data scientist in a small kind of boutique consultancy, and then worked my way into machine learning engineering, where that's when I joined Vodafone to build out their MLOps platform, so how we productionize machine learning platforms. From there, I knew I wanted to get into product management. I knew early on that consulting wasn't really for me because I wanted to kind of see product through. I wanted to see kind of where it landed, how it does with customers, and then improve on it. And therefore, I wanted to pivot into product management. So I slowly got to get into product management, but I feel like there were some skills lacking. So that's why I came to Sloan.
Let's even roll it back a little bit more. Do I hear an Irish accent?
That's right, yeah. Before London, I was in Ireland, born and raised there, went to undergrad there. So from Ireland to London to Boston.
So when you meet classmates for the first time, do they do a double take when they hear your accent?
I think because I've lived abroad so much, I think my accent's kind of neutralized a little bit. When I talk to other Irish people, yeah, it definitely comes out. When I talk to people from around the world, it becomes a bit more neutral and understandable, I'd say.
Right. No, I appreciate that.
Well, I remember the first time I talked to you, I read your bio, I was like, Aman Singh. I'm like, okay, maybe no accent, maybe a slight Indian accent. And then I talked to you, I'm like, that's not the accent I was expecting. But it just made it fun.
Yeah, definitely when I tell people from Ireland, they're like, oh, that's where the accent.
Right.
So at what point did you decide that you were interested in business schools as you realized that you needed more skills for product management?
I think it was a bit before that. I think growing up, my parents had a business when I was growing up. It wasn't anything grand. It was just kind of a little smaller scale. But I was always interested in starting my own business, getting into entrepreneurship. I did go down the engineering route because it was stable. My uncle, who was one of the only ones I knew who went to college in my family, I was like, oh, he has a good job. He drives a nice car, has a nice house. Let me go down the engineering route.
Yeah.
Whereas when I saw my parents, they were working 12-hour days and kind of really grinding. But having that business school idea in my mind was something that kind of came into my mind after my master's degree, but it wasn't anything serious. I just looked up, HBS and Sloan and GSP, but looking up all these big names, I was like, yeah, I'm never going to get in. Especially with a kind of an iffy educational journey. I was like, oh, I don't know about that. And I started working. And then I think when I was transitioning into PM, I was like, okay, there's some things missing. But also I was on LinkedIn and I would search up people that I admired or wanted to be like. And a lot of those people on LinkedIn had MBAs. And that's when I started to kind of think about it more seriously. Like, if I want to get to this position this person's at, maybe I need to go down the MBA route. And then after that came a lot of soul searching, like, is an MBA what I really need? Because a lot of people, when you're in tech, they're like, you can just pivot to product management. You don't need to go to an MBA. But I think to give myself the best chance, but also all the necessary skills, and mainly soft skills, which I kind of went to the MBA for, I felt like I needed to do it.
So how did you research programs and to shortlist where you wanted to apply?
I think coming from a tech background, I looked for tech-heavy MBAs, or at least kind of tech adjacent, where I could do MBA classes, but also then further refine my technical skills or engineering skills. But when I was looking throughout the courses, there was a few things. So I was in London, I wanted something close to home, but also if I was to move to America, I think I needed to make it a big splash, essentially, you know, that I'm going there to achieve something. I'm going there to work hard and you really kind of get out there. So when I was looking in America, I had a few schools shortlisted, and then obviously Jessica here helped me out immensely with kind of telling me what schools specialized in and what schools would fit my background. And then we narrowed it down to 5 schools in total, which we then made essays for, wrote essays for, and submitted them.
That makes sense. In that case, Jessica, let me turn this around and ask you a question. As you think about someone with Aman's background, wants to be tech adjacent, great term actually, wants to be tech adjacent, what schools immediately come to mind for you?
Oh, well, MIT. MIT, Berkeley, UT Austin, McCombs. They're the one-year tech MBAs like NYU Tech and Cornell Tech. He didn't want those because he wanted the full 2-year experience, the summer internship experience. But for some people who want to stay in tech and don't need that internship, those one-year tech programs can be a great option. Stanford, Kellogg MMM program is a dual degree in MBA, and it's a Master's of Design Innovation, where you get 2 degrees. He already had a master's, so we did think 3 masters might end up being
A bit overkill.
a lot, but it was also a really great program and a good option. So are there others that you think of come to mind?
If anything, I was going to say the Kellogg MMM program, which is this great program, very, in some ways, different from practically anything else, sort of very heavy design focus. But again, I'm an MIT Sloan grad, and I certainly have my biases here.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the application process and working together, because I think people sign up with us and they're excited and they trust their consultant and they sort of have this vague idea that it's going to be a lot of work and essays, but I don't think they really know at the beginning what is going to be involved. Yeah. So as you try to sort of rewind your head back to the beginning of our working relationship and then look at what happened, what sticks with you the most?
I think what stuck with me the most about the whole process, or the kind of working with you specifically, was the confidence you had in me. So I went to a no-name undergrad and wasn't great in Ireland. My master's degree, it was from a good school, but I had failed like 3 subjects in it. So I was a bit nervous. My career thus far, when you look at the posts and quants videos and everyone's working at FANG or investment banking, and I was like, oh, I don't know if anyone's heard of Vodafone or anyone's heard of these companies. But then when I kind of told Jessica about my life and my story, and she was like, I don't see why you're so nervous. Like, you have a perfect shot. As long as you have a good GMAT, GRE score and good essays, I'd have a lot of credibility with my application, and, my application would be a pretty solid one.
That makes sense. Let me quickly ask, because I know a lot of our listeners and viewers are thinking about it. Obviously, a little bit of a rocky GPA, we'll say. How did you do on the GRE and the GMAT?
So the GMAT, I did it a handful of times. I think I couldn't break 720.
This is on the old GMAT, not GMAT.
Oh, sorry, the old GMAT as well, yeah.
Sure.
And then I think the plan was for us to apply in round 1, and I still hadn't got a GMAT ready. So we went up to round 2, and I remember I did my GRE on the 29th of December, and applications were due on like the 3rd of January. So it was a pretty, but luckily we had been working on our essays beforehand, so our essays are ready to go. So what was really left was just applying, I think.
Yeah, and you ended up with a GRE score that you were happy with.
Yes, yeah, over the moon, yeah. So again, that was also Jessica's advice. Like, when I couldn't get the GMAT, I was like, oh, I think maybe I should apply to some different schools. But when I got the GRE, I was over the moon. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, I wouldn't have tried it either if Jessica hadn't.
But let's just talk about process for a minute. December 29th with applications in January, very soon in January. You can do that because when you submit to the schools, you do self-reported scores. So obviously it's not ideal.
Yeah.
Obviously no one wants that. But I have literally had people take the test the morning the application was due, when the application was due at midnight. So if you're listening to this, we don't recommend that, but just recognize that that is a possibility. I think for school selection purposes, for your own sanity, it would have made life much easier if you had a score before we started working together. But that's just not the reality for a lot.
That's right. And let's even turn it around. This was only possible because you started your application way early. Yeah. You were ready to go. Many people come to us and say, "Oh, I'm going to be in touch with you once I get my test taken care of." And the reality is that for some people, maybe that works, but for the vast majority of people, there's certainly a great advantage to really working on the application weeks, months early.
And I think that most applicants, you'll tell me if this is the case, underestimate just how much time it takes to write the essays, how many drafts, the short answers on the application itself. There's a lot involved in the application. And so not rushing that process because you're waiting until you have a score is very valuable.
Yeah, 100% agree. When I talk to my peers at Sloan, they all say the same thing. The application process took a lot longer than they expected, but when they're writing their essays with the restricted word count, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy as well. And while you're working your daily 9-to-5 job.
Was there anything that surprised you about the essays?
With the essays, had I not come to you, they would have been completely different. They would have focused more on what I thought would look flashy and what I thought they would want to see. But after talking to Jessica, she kind of made me show them that I was human and that I have faults. And she kind of made me be a bit more vulnerable with my essays and show them who I really am. Whereas had I done them on my own, they just would have been my CV or my resume in a paragraph, essentially.
And without oversharing, you had some instances in your past that really were very formative and very difficult at times. And I think that when we talked for our initial consultation and then through the brainstorming, I said, just embrace that. You don't have to overshare. You don't have to say anything you're not comfortable with, but they're asking questions about who you are as a person, not just what you've achieved. And I think a lot of people don't recognize the importance of things like, helping out your younger siblings, which you did, paid for them, flew back and forth to look after them. There's a lot of personal stories that show your characteristics. We're not sharing because the business schools are tragedy junkies, but because they're trying to get to know what are your values, what's your perspective on life, what experiences have shaped how you navigate through the world. Because when you're running a company, they want to know that you understand how to look out for your employees. They want to understand that you know how to have a conversation with someone outside your comfort zone.
That's right. And the personal experiences are the most authentic ones. The reality of the situation, and I'm going to exaggerate just a little bit here, is you showed me your resume. I would think I know everything about you, sort of this tech guy, where you grew up and that sort of thing. And what Jessica and I, and really all of us at mbaMission work on is to get beyond that, to get into the color of your life, because that's really what makes for great applications.
Yeah.
And obviously, you have to look at the questions. Something like Stanford's What Matters Most to You and Why. Yes, you're going to be vulnerable. You're going to talk about what really does drive you. Whereas describe a biggest impact at work, you're probably not going to mention your personal life at all. So there's a line. You have to answer the questions being asked. But I do think that a lot of people think that they have to only write about work because it's a business school. And the other thing you said was that, which I liked, is you said to show that you were vulnerable and had made mistakes. And I think that's another key point. Applicants often believe that they have to be perfect and that the school is expecting that they were born knowing what they wanted to do in life and never had a stumble or a mistake since then. And that's not the reality for pretty much anybody. And it's important to show that, and the schools understand it.
If you want to be one of our success stories, sign up for a free consultation with a member of our full-time MBA admissions team. Since we've worked with tens of thousands of applicants over the past 2 decades, we can give you our honest opinion on your chances and help you put together your very best application. That is not a sales call, but rather your first session with one of us for free. We can give you a profile evaluation, answer specific questions about the process, review your resume, talk about your school choices, and so much more. Sign up at mbaMission.com/consult. We look forward to working with you.
So taking us through the process a little bit more, you got your GRE done last minute, but the bottom line is you got it done. At that point as well, clearly you'd worked on your application. For doing the math here, how long was it? About 3 months? Is that?
So I was in contact with Jessica for a while.
Yeah.
We wrote all our essays kind of over a month and a half. But
yeah, because we started aiming for round one.
Yeah.
So we really started working together, and as soon as the questions were released, Aman had signed on earlier, so questions were released around May, June. So we spent that summer working on the essays and then had to put things on pause for him to focus on the test.
But even then, I think it was the response times between both of us. When we had our meetings about schools and what essays they look for, I would get essays out to her the next day, and Jessica would get out responses to me in 2 days, I think it was. And when she had the responses and feedback out to me, I would apply them that day and then get them back. So I think we were both on the same page with regards to how quickly we want to get this done, but also making sure that we're paying attention.
Right. It was quickness with thoroughness. I mean, I didn't send things back like, good job, fix this word. It was very in-depth, and you would send them back, and you didn't just accept my comments and return it within half an hour. You actually thought about my comments, looked at my edits to see if you liked them, made changes, didn't always accept them. And that's the kind of partnership that I think really makes for an ideal application, because it's authentically you, but the best version of you.
Let me just stop you right there. It really is a partnership. And what we mean by that is by no means are we writing your essays for you, whether it's you two or me and my clients, working together to find that really unique, authentic, genuine story that only you can tell.
Yeah, I think the communication was honestly the best part about it. And the fact that I think we were both very comfortable, or like I hope we were comfortable with each other, just like telling it how it was, and making sure that if we didn't like something, we were open.
Well, I think the other thing for me, I don't have an engineering background. I didn't understand, I don't know, half the words on his resume when I first got it. And I was a little nervous about that, because that is something that I want to be able to help you. But the reality is, the admissions officers reading your resume are also not engineers. And so in a way, it can be a perfect fit to have someone, as long as which I was comfortable saying, I don't know what that means. I don't pretend to know everything. And that also, I think, requires a consultant, and all of us do that, to say, okay, explain this to me like I'm your grandmother, because basically I don't understand this. And to then be able to put it in words and to say, correct me if I edited something wrong, because I'm not always going to know your story, and I don't want to put words. And even with stories where I would understand, like some personal stories, I wasn't there. And so we always talk to our clients like, we're going to give you guidance, we're going to give you advice, but ultimately you have to be the one signing off that this is an integrity thing. So it requires vulnerability on our part too, to say we don't know this. And you then not saying, well, my consultant's supposed to know everything. And because we're people too, and we don't always have.
100%. And I think I've used that throughout, since you've like kind of did that, I use that throughout going into Sloan, applying for internships, where I can't assume people know what MLOps is or what machine learning engineering is. But then Jessica really helped me hone in how you explain those things, and not assuming that everyone knows what those mean.
Right. Clearly talking about some very specific issues, I'll say personal issues. Do you feel like the value of that process went beyond just your business school applications?
100%. Yeah. So definitely with interviewing for internships, when we did our interview prep for each school, being able to explain things in a strategic manner, being able to answer my questions in a strategic manner was really good. Coming into business school, you're meeting, I think it's around 400 new people, introducing yourself. I think Jessica really helped me become comfortable with telling people who I am, and the vulnerability side of things. So she really helped me become comfortable with the vulnerability. And I know that's not the kind of aim of the essays, but I would never talk about that sort of stuff. And coming into Sloan, I felt more comfortable. And then obviously paired with some of the classes I did at Sloan, such as like the leadership lab, ID lab, now I know that, vulnerability can be a really powerful thing, especially making connections. And that's something that I cherish pretty.
My favorite parts of this job is that people come in and they see lower grades or personal stories they see them as failures. And I think we all feel really strongly that our job is to help you reframe those experiences into growth, into strengths, into what did you gain? You gained resilience, you gained perseverance, you gained ability to navigate your emotions. There are so many things you gain from we don't grow from all the great things that happen to us. We grow from what's the struggles and the difficulties. And so being able to reframe your own experiences as not as weaknesses or things you're embarrassed by, but things that you embrace is such an exciting process when we get to help someone do that.
I think that's the reason us consultants love doing what we do. And I think that's an important part of it too. And again, I want to make it clear that these are very personal relationships, and you really have to be comfortable with that person you're really going to be spending a lot of time with.
Right. Right. And you have to like them. Applicants ask, how do I pick a consultant? I say, look, you have to assume that we're all good because we are. We have very careful quality standards here. Watch the videos and just ask yourself, do you like this person? You're going to be opening up to them. You're going to be sharing your concerns with them. You need to enjoy those conversations and feel like you trust them. And that's the only thing that makes for a good partnership. If you don't feel safe with someone, they're not going to be a good partner for you.
That's right.
And they could be the best, most highly ranked consultant in the world. They're not going to be right for you.
Yeah, 100% agree. I shopped around for a few consultants before I came on to Jessica. And I think with Jessica, there was a sense of comfort, but also just a sense of telling me how it is. And I think that's what I needed, just be like truthful, be honest. And I think that was one of the most best things. Going back to like what I learned from Jessica, I think the biggest thing I learned actually was how to write a resume. I think my resumes were awful before I applied for business school. 2 pages long, just full of jargon, full of, explaining things, but with no impact.
Yes. Yeah. I think applicants really have to remember that sometimes the first thing business school admissions committee members see is your resume. So it's the old, you only have one chance to make a first impression. And I think at the end of the day, many people, not our clients, but many people sort of under-index on the importance of the resume.
And on the resume being a business school resume, not a professional one. A professional resume, you would put some of that jargon back because it's appropriate.
Right.
But for a business school resume, it's about the impact and the actions rather than the machine language learning, whatever that you stuff, the one you say MLOps or whatever. Yeah. Well, like that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, that's right.
Was there any part of the application process you really didn't like?
The exams, the GRE, GMAT. I think not to do with you or the application process itself. It was just to do with the information out there that I was really overwhelmed with. So obviously everyone's on Reddit these days. They have the MBA subreddit. Poets and quants have the videos online, and you see these very impressive applicants go in and being told, oh, maybe, Harvard's too, not a reach for you, or maybe MIT Sloan's not a reach for you. But it's like there should be more believe in yourself, that everyone is pretty impressive. Just you need to know how to craft your story. And I think reading all of that really overwhelmed me. But then going back to Jessica, she really brought me down to earth, and she was like, no, like we just need to know how to craft your story.
I think there's a really big difference that a lot of people don't realize at the beginning of the process between your profile and your application. And a weaker profile can still submit a fantastic application, and a really great profile can submit a mediocre application. And it's, yes, the profile leads into the application, but it's not the same thing. And so when I look at someone with their profile, I don't know what they're going to be like as an applicant. I know what some of the checklist items are, but we go so far beyond that. And our goal is obviously make sure everybody, regardless of their profile, has a great application. But the difference between profile and application is hours and hours and hours of work.
Yeah, I've not heard that distinction. That's a really good distinction. And part of it has to do with the fact that, again, you came in with a profile in your mind, or maybe 2 profiles in your mind. One is just who I am, looking only at the resume, professional accomplishments, really not even thinking about the most important pieces of yourself. And then also there's this expectation, what business schools are looking for. And listen, as I tell folks all the time, if business schools wanted to fill their classes with, insert, engineer from India, McKinsey, Bain, BCG consultant,
only top scores and grades.
Only top scores and grades.
Those people are out
That's
there.
easy.
That scared the living daylights out of me. Like just reading that, and I was like, I've none of that. But
No, of course. Then I want to ask you about the next step of the process, though, is interviewing and interviews, which is, I know, very intimidating for a lot of people, particularly the MIT interview.
I think I was pretty okay with the interviews. I think Jessica said, be yourself. And after crafting all the stories, she was like, you know what you're going to answer or talk about. So I don't know, like there's no reason to be nervous because you wrote those essays. You did all that research and you did all that work. So doing the interview is just kind of reiterating and making sure that you can just talk about the impact.
But we should mention why you said particularly the MIT interviews. So there are basically 2 major types of interviews. There's the blind interviews, where the interviewer only sees your resume. So the admissions office reads the whole application, selects people, and then the person who interviews, whether it's an alum or a student or even someone in the admissions office, only sees the resume.
Right.
Harvard, MIT, NYU, and London Business School are probably the top 4 that do what we call a comprehensive interview, where the interviewer has read the entire application.
Yeah.
And that changes your story because you go in and they already know about you. So for an interview that's just based on the resume, you can tell what's in your essays, and they don't already know that. But for a comprehensive interview, you can't just repeat your essay because they know that. So you have to go deeper. But it also makes for more of a conversation because you're meeting someone who already knows you.
Right. I think, yeah, that's a very good point. I think prior to doing the interviews, Jessica and I did a lot of mock interviews. And obviously, Jessica knows my background. So she was able to ask those kind of intensive questions, or the questions that were curveballs or I didn't expect. I think answering those questions on the fly with no prep, so I'd done no prep before going into those mock interviews, I think that really helped me hone in on what I'd like to talk about if that sort of topic came up, and also just jot down a few topics that I could answer for specific questions or around those questions.
Right.
MIT's one was a little interesting because it's 30 minutes on the dot. There's no going over, no going back, and they come in, they're like, explain your data. So you have the data.
You have those extra pieces
right,
to it.
You have the extra essays to do. So it was explain your data set.
These are essays that you get when you get the interview.
Once you get the interview.
You then have to submit 2 essays within a week before the interview itself. Just when you think the process is over.
The first, I think, just under 10 minutes was explaining my presentation, my data set, or my slide, which again, Jessica helped me out greatly with that.
And I'm just going to pause you there because I think the purpose of that, and you are both MIT and data guys, so I can, I'll ask you if this is right. But to me, the purpose of asking you about that is exactly what we talked about with the engineering resume. It's to make sure that you can explain data, not by focusing on the statistics or the methods you use to get there, but on the interpretation and explaining it at an executive level.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of data at MIT, as you can imagine. So that's a definitely needed skill. But yeah, after the first 10 minutes, the next 20 minutes were just asking about my experiences. They were very broad questions, and I wanted to make sure, again, because they knew me, that I was giving them something new, but also kind of tying it into my whole profile to make sure it was make it seem like it was a complete answer. So my MIT one was a little more transactional, and it was a bit more like question, answer. And usually I tried to kind of be more conversationally and more friendly with them. And I wasn't really getting that with the MIT. And throughout the interview, I was like, I've done a terrible job. I've done so bad. And in my head, I was like, I've majorly screwed up. But towards the end, we kind of then did get to the conversational stage, and we did have a nice exchange. And I think that kind of put my mind at ease a little bit. It also helped that MIT was my last interview out of my whole cycle. So I had a little bit of practice.
Yeah, that's great.
So I was happy with that. But yeah, I think going to the conversational bit, like the comprehensive interviews, I remember LBS when I was doing my interview there. I actually had a product manager from Google interviewing me, and in my essays I'd mentioned that I would like to be a product manager at Google. So that was definitely nerve-wracking. I think that was one of the most nerve-wracking interviews I had.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. And they're about over an hour, LBS interviews?
The LBS one lasted about 45 minutes.
45
minutes.
Say.
40. I think it was the longest. Other than INSEAD's one, I think it was
I think London Business School is one of the most comprehensive applications and interviews, almost overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it's long. It's a lot of work.
INSEAD too. Those are long, but they do get to know you and they make really good choices because of it. But they're a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Aman, what we'd love to do is have another podcast with you, just talking about your MIT experience. Would you be up for that? Okay. Well, listen, in that case, just thank you so much here for the MBA Mission podcast from Harold and Jessica, obviously. And we're so happy to hear about how it all turned out.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys.
Exciting news! You can now access On Track by MBA Mission for free. Take our 2-minute onboarding questionnaire to personalize your learning path. Choose the free plan, and you'll have unlimited access to our complete modules on MBA application timelines, standardized testing, your professional background, community leadership, school selection, and more. You'll also get access to select lessons from our brainstorming, personal statement, essay, resume, and recommendation modules. It's a great introduction to the On Track platform and will help you jumpstart the MBA application process. Get started today at ontrack.mbamission.com.